Welcome to Being Reintegrated. My name is Tim Wright, and I'm happy to present this to you because we're going to go through a series of lectures which are about the exercises that you can download as a subscriber based on this lecture. So the purpose of the first exercise is to purify the self and access universal consciousness. So what is self-purification and what is universal consciousness? I mean, these are terms that are used all the time, but they're not terms that are easily definable. Well, the self isn't necessarily an unpure entity. Let's get that right out of the way. And universal consciousness, we're not talking about the consciousness of all the things that exist in the universe. We're talking about consciousness of existence in the universe. It doesn't have to do with a channeling down to ourselves and what it is we're going to say about that flow or whatever. It's very important to understand, because self-reflection, if it's not reflected upon, this is what Jung said pretty much in answer to Job, that evil can only be done in absence of self-reflection. So, if you're not looking at the way that yourself is interacting and you're just going through like an animal or whatever, doing whatever comes natural to you, that's okay, but it's going to cause, since we're human beings, a need to reflect on those behaviors. So that's why self-reflection is so important, because without it, we're losing our humanity. So the goal of this exercise is to purify your daily actions and thoughts, to purify from just being a animal that acts without any kind of foresight, as they call it in the Gnostic tradition. We want to have guidance from the higher spiritual entities as we go in to live this life. Now, it's recommended to do this in the evening before you go to sleep. And I know it's super, super challenging to do that. So, it's real easy, though, in its actual function to do. You just got to remember it. So you lie down comfortably, fully relaxed, and you review the events of the day, starting from the evening and moving backwards. So this will give you just a review of what has already happened. It's not to say anything bad about what you did. It's not about guilt or shame. What it is intended to do is to shed a little bit of light of that universal consciousness on the self, which does bring purification. So the Pythagorean tradition, this is one of the major exercises. There's a term called Metum psychosis, which is that we've existed as multiple selves, countless selves really, throughout the timeline of where self could manifest. And so what we've done is we've come into this particular life with these particular circumstances, and now we have these particular instances where the self is acting out of that material. And what happens is we run into other selves that do the same thing. So, there's a level of being the best you that you can be. That's what the whole idea about living spontaneously is about, is being the best you without guilt or shame about who you are. So, look at your day and see, did you speak and act and live as though you wanted to? Not as though you should. There's no commandments being put on you, but the commandment is just look back and see if that's the kind of person you intended to be or wanted to be that day. The whole idea of looking back into ourselves is an act of memory. You're including, I talk about this with my teacher, all the time. We need to learn how to have continuity of consciousness past the vestibular or cerebral event that's stimulating. Stimulus response, the whole rage of the fast internet culture. So this is a behavioral review. It allows you to assess and refine your daily behavior, maintaining impeccability towards yourself and others. And that is really what brings a purification of the self, as being who we intend to be when we intend to be that way. There's a part of purification, but it's also part of personal growth here. The Paul saying is, that which I want to do, I do not do, and that which I do not want to do, I do, regardless of my intention. So we're looking at it from this standpoint. And, this brings a lot more energy flowing where it needs to flow. So it purifies the vital body and it develops the higher self. The daily practice helps purify the vital body, which aids in the construction of the quote-unquote body of glory, or the robe of glory, that's necessary for liberation. Because what happens is, we need to bring on the truth body, so to speak, to use a little bit of Buddhist terminology. Because if we don't have the truth body, the lie or the false self is going to come in and try to take over the situation. Now, the techniques and practical considerations of this method is, like I said, you're doing a mental replay, but you're also getting objectivity. You're looking at yourself as a disinterested party, and you're describing objectively what happened without any reactivity or anything else. It's not to be guilty, but maintain an external observer-like stance, like you're watching a movie. Now, the best way to do this is to build your habit energy and do it daily. And like I said, do it for observation rather than blame. That's not why it's being done. So over time, this is developing an inner observer who helps identify errors in real time. There's this whole phrase about learning how to stop yourself in the flow of the current of the challenging circumstance, which is not easily able to be obtained. Well, it's habit energy which allows us that response. Just like breathing, we have habit energy for breathing, habit energy for eating, habit energy for a lot of things, which makes it almost something like we don't even notice it's happening. So this develops your spiritual development. I know it's a double used term, and your self-awareness. So self-reflection and getting these kind of benefits allows you a level of personal growth which just isn't available to normal society. This is the elitism of doing a spiritual practice. So do the exercise as much as you can remember, but when you go to bed, it enhances self-awareness and spiritual development. So this is going to give you an opportunity, which is a little bit more than just, looking back through the day. It gives you these subtle faculties which any powerful person would have. When you go into a meeting and they have an agenda, everybody reviews the meeting based on the agenda. They don't review the meeting based on who they like the most. There's imperatives, there's things that need to be done. And in spiritual development, there's ways that we want to use this creativity and this inherent faculty, which is good and should be used in a way that is definitely beneficial to ourselves first and others for sure. And this goes back to the Pythagorean axiom, know thyself and you'll know your neighbor and therefore know God. Know thyself, know others, and know God, if you have those two positions in strong alignment. So hopefully that helps you with a little bit with the guidance on this exercise, and thanks for being a subscriber on the Patreon.